Hey everyone, and good afternoon. So something came up in the group today, the Telegram group. Yes, fuck you too. Um, regarding meeting up off the internet, which is something that we haven't really talked about yet, and that's hopefully in the next several months to a year we'll be able to start doing that again. But I kind of wanted to talk about that and talk about kind of the history of that, but also, what works, what doesn't, and what you might be doing to sabotage yourselves from being able to meet somebody online. So the first thing that I would say is I'm going to mention a little bit that we have a rather large history of different sites that have come and gone. Like Takedown Wrestling is no longer a thing. Global Fight is one of the oldest ones that are out there, and it's I've actually recently left Global Fight because honestly it was an expensive site for not much benefit, right? A lot of the people that were on that site, I don't know if I want to go into too much detail on it, but they, a lot of them were less interested in the wrestling, and there wasn't really much of a good tracking system for who's wrestled who has experience, who doesn't, that kind of thing. And honestly, the whole thing just kind of started feeling really, really old and stale and HTML, and I know it's probably not HTML, but it just, it became stagnant, and I think a lot of people that are really, really interested in being active in wrestling stopped using it. And there was Craigslist, which had its pros and its cons, and because it's like Grindr, it was one of those things where you hook up in the moment, and there's not really much chatting that goes on before or after, and then you just go. And so, which brings me kind of to the one that's become, I think, in my opinion, the most used and widely respected of all of them, which is Meat Fighters. And don't get me wrong, it's got its certain disadvantages. I think that if you want to search for a particular interest, it's easier to go into a group to search for it, but you can't like search people by location there. But there are just a lot of things about it that are really, really good and clean about it. Really, I like the fact that they have the recommendations page. I like that you can report people when they don't show up, or when they show up they do something that's toxic, or made it not a great experience for you. And so there's a lot of things about that site that are really, really helpful. I like that they have interest groups. Their search features are okay. They work all right. And you have the travel feature, so you can put your location in multiple places. But so there's a lot that's great about Meat Fighters, and it's kind of my preferred platform for it. Getting into a little bit more of how do you actually start getting matches, and the thing that I see as being the most widespread problem on Meat Fighters is the fact that people either they won't post any photos, and a lot of that has to do with discretion. Sometimes people are in jobs where they don't feel like they can put up photos. Sometimes people are not out of the closet. A lot of those people, a lot of times will say, well, I'm really, really concerned about discretion. And I think in all my years of being in the leather community, being in the wrestling community, I've only once had somebody approach me in mixed company, and that guy was a real idiot. And I'm not even saying that lightly. Like there is something mentally wrong with that guy. And when he approached us, he wasn't something that I'd interacted with before, but we were having a meeting of sorts, and he came up and started talking as if we knew each other well, which we'd only seen each other out at the leather bar a few times. So really, to be completely honest with you, having a discretion issue is incredibly rare in most places. And I bet if you were to ask pretty much almost anybody on any one of these sites how much of a problem they've actually had with discretion, it's going to be slim to none, right? A lot of times, people that we're meeting, we live on different sides of the city, we hang out with different friends, I don't know their families, we don't work in the same building, so it's very rare for there to be that crossover in the first place. And so there's that. Now, a lot of people on Meat Fighters will just blot out the face, which is fine. It gives you guys at least something, right? And so the reason why I bring up the whole issue of photos or no photos is that, to put this in the simplest terms, and I apologize if this offends, but you are a product when you are going onto a meetup site, whether it's Recon, whether it's Meat Fighters, whether it's Manhunt, or whatever is out there nowadays, Grindr or whatever. You are a product that you are trying to sell to another person, and there is, in most places, a big sea of crap products, right? And so if you put yourself out there and you allow yourself to look like a crap product, people aren't going to buy you. Okay, and that's kind of blunt. That's kind of you know, the allegory is, you know, not perfect, but really, guys, when you have people that you know, have 100 recommendations in your city, who are known nationally, who have really hot, sexy photos of themselves, and you know, their profiles are well written and all that, that's what you're competing against, right? And so when you are posting a photo, try to show whatever makes you the most interesting, and have a little faith, right? That the world's going to be kind to you, that you don't have to hide in the closet nowadays as much as you would. And I know there are some places in the U.S. maybe it is prudent to do that, but it's definitely not in Seattle. And you know, places like New York, Chicago, L.A., San Francisco. You know, if you're living in a big city, Atlanta even, right? You probably don't have a whole lot to worry about having your image available online. But if you don't have a great image, or you're not willing to post an image of yourself, the next thing that you have, guys, are, you know, the part where you actually talk about yourselves. And a lot of people will say, well, I don't know what to say. I never know how to fill out these things. And some people even write that in their fucking profile. Don't do that, okay? Don't tell people, will say, oh, I have interests, just ask. People don't want to do that work. The whole purpose of having a profile is to weed you out. So if you want to be noticed, if you want to be recognized, you have to kind of grow a pair and put yourself out there a little bit. And so the next point on this is, well, what do I put in that section? What do I write? Well, I would advise you to look at the people that you are most interested in wrestling with, right? Go ahead and browse around, look at all the different people that are out there, and look at their profile, see what they say that got your interest, what piqued your interest, what did they say well. And I would recommend not copying them verbatim, but you know, you're looking for things that speak to you and speak to the style that you were looking to do. So if you were looking to do, you know, freestyle or folk style or Greco-Roman or Sambo or Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu or submission wrestling or whatever, talk about that, right? Talk about why that interests you. If you have nothing else to say, talk about it. You know, if you are looking for sex, say it. If you are not looking for sex, say it, right? Are you more into the exercise, body contact element of it, or are you more into it as foreplay? Those are good things to say. And the truth of the matter is that, yes, I'm going to look at your profile, and I'm going to read what you have to say, and I'm going to judge you for it, right? And the thing is that I'm going to look at what you said, I'm going to look at your photos, I'm going to look at your stats, I'm going to look at everything about you. The recommendations, your location, your age, your height, your weight, everything. And I'm going to make a decision on whether I am interested in wrestling with you based on that information provided before I even message you in the first place, okay? So catch my attention. When I'm browsing through, do or say something that is going to make you interesting to me. Now, yeah, I'm more of a submission wrestler, so I might go to your page and you say, well, I'm only interested in folk style, and I might say, well, I'm going to move on to the next guy, and that's fine. But there's going to be somebody that's going to come across your profile who does do folk style and say, no, you're my guy, and you're not trying to sell to me, you're trying to sell to that guy. Okay, so know what you are as a product, know what your buyer is. Right? Who are you trying to market to? And then strategically plan what you say and how you say it to market to those people. Now, if you guys look at my profile, you're going to notice that it's a fucking novel. And I every once in a while I go through there and I try to cut it down, and that's a weak point for me, guys, is the fact that it says way too much. If you guys can get that voiced cleanly and succinctly, then go ahead and do it. The reason why my profile is so long and so complicated is because I'm complicated. What I'm looking for is complicated. And my interests are pretty wide-reaching. So I address all that. And I suppose there's probably a way I can look through there and probably cut it down to a quarter of what it is. And that would probably be more successful for me. So try to balance that, guys. Be aware, you know, if you put out one sentence and it has nothing to make you interesting in it, then there's no point in you being on that website. You're not going to find any matches that way. So the next step in trying to meet with somebody is to contact them directly, right? You might, you know, they might find you if you're in an interest group that, and you start talking about something in the interest group, and people go, "Oh, this person has a similar interest to me." You're marketing to that group, but the next part that is probably one of the other areas where people tend to be really, really weak is to how do you approach somebody for the first time. And I've made it kind of a pet peeve over the years to have somebody message and say, "Hi," or "Hi, how are you?" or "Hello," and there's nothing else to the message. Again, guys, when you do that, you're not making yourself interesting to anybody. You are, you know, potentially, my experience with those types of people, and you know, you might think that you're the exception to this, and once in a while there is an exception, but it's rare. And I need to make you aware that people, when they've been on there for a long time, and they've been chatted up over and over again, and everybody always is just starting off with, "Hi, how are you?" Eventually that becomes disinteresting. Flat out, okay? So what has been the whole point of everything I've said so far? What makes you interesting? Okay? Now, don't go to the other extreme, okay? And I was just reading an article about, you know, behavior in a leather bar, and how you approach somebody. And you see somebody who's flagging submissive, and you go over there and you talk to them as if you've been their dom for 3 years, and you're just, you know, saying, "I'm going to shove my cock down your throat, bitch boy," and you start talking to somebody, that might not even be the way that they like to be talked to as a submissive. I certainly, when I was a submissive, I didn't want to be talked that way. And so you haven't built any rapport, you haven't done the homework to find out what that person likes, so don't go to the other extreme on a wrestling site, right? You know, when people go to those far extremes and they come out and they say, you know, I'm gonna, you know, pin you down and shove my cock in your face and make you suck it, and you will be completely helpless because I'm such a powerful, strong wrestler to do that. When you say those things to people, it comes across as rapey, to be completely honest. Yes, some people are going to be into that, but again, I would probably advise you to build that rapport first before you go out of your way to, yeah, you're a rude plane. Before you just approach somebody and assume that they're going to respond to that in a positive way. You know, that might be a person who really, really does want that. But if you open with that, they might be like, "Well, who the fuck is this guy?" Right? And you're gonna push them away and you're gonna turn them off. So when you first say hello to somebody, you know, first of all, I always kind of make a point of, "Hey, I'm thinking about being in your area in whatever amount of time frame." right? I'm looking to be in your area in, you know, a year, 2 years, or something like that. And for me, when I see that, I'm more likely to be cordial to that person. I'm more likely to open up that dialogue with that person, but they're going to go on the back burner, right? So, you know, I would say that if you're going to be traveling somewhere, I would give somebody, you know, up to 3 months notice before you actually go there. Because again, time is your enemy. If you know, you tell somebody, hey, I'm going to be out there in 2 years, and I'm going to really, you know, we have a lot of interests that are in common. I like that you said this in your profile. I like you said that. Be specific. But if, no matter how interesting you are, unless you think you can maintain a 2-year conversation with that person to set up that one match, which is going to be like 2 hours, maybe tops, maybe 3, I don't know. But you know, people are going to get bored with you. They're going to lose interest in wrestling with you, no matter how interesting you are. And there are exceptions. There are exceptions to that. But the long distance relationship thing doesn't play well in my experience. And so if you are messaging somebody long distance, the reason why you're messaging with that person is because you are going to them, right? Some people, once in a while, will be open to the idea of you flying them to wherever you are, but, you know, I get really pissed off, personally, when somebody messages me and is like, well, I can't afford to fly out to you, so you need to fly out to me. I'm not the one who initiated this conversation. It is not my responsibility to open up my schedule, get time off from work, negotiate with my partner, fly out there, potentially do a hotel, pay for the airplane. That's a big ask, guys, that you're asking of a complete stranger. So, you know, again, if you are messaging somebody from outside your area, you want to make yourself interesting in the near future. And so if, you know, 1 month I think is actually kind of that perfect window, because you are not allowing people to have time to forget you, really, especially if you're messaging back and forth. If you guys get like 50 messages between you, you're probably going to end up rolling, especially if you're coming to that area. So when you are doing that first message, if you are messaging somebody from out of state or out of your city, you know, show that you're going to meet up, because that's what people are doing on these sites, guys. They're not there to chat. They're there to hook up, really, at the end of the day. You know, some people are, and it's different if you're doing cyber, and I'm not covering cyber on this, but so what would a good first message look like? And this did come up in the chat group today, but Telegram group, but you know, it would be something along the lines of, hey, how are you? I see that you are interested in this, and I've been playing around with this. Maybe I don't have any experience in that, and it's perfectly fine to admit that you don't have any experience, but I'm really looking to gain some experience with this. Would you be open to wrestling with me? And what you're doing there is you're showing, A, that you read their profile. Okay? Always read a profile before you message. If you see a hot pic and you message somebody and you're like, wrestle me, well, why? Okay? Especially if your profile's empty. So, you know, that might work if you have a lot of really hot photos up in your profile, and you have a concise but well-written profile that really sells you well, then that might work. The hi, how are you might work, but you know, a lot of times people that have been around for a while don't even look at that anymore. They won't look at your profile if you used to say hi, how are you, unless the one photo that they get to see piques their interest. So, well, what if, and I guess I'm going back to the, we'll answer this question as a whole, right? What if I'm not interesting? What do you mean you're not interesting? What the hell does that mean? And I'm serious on this, guys. What the hell does I'm not interesting mean? Right? There's nobody on this planet who's not interesting. The question is is whether or not you're willing to show what's interesting about you. You know, I've played around with several folks that are not who I would say are hot or attractive in, you know, ripped six-pack abs, lots of wrestling experience. It's going to make for a very challenging match. Some of my favorite people don't fit into that jacked, super ripped, technically skilled bubble, right? You don't have to be that. You have to be you, and you have to be confident in you. So sell that. You know, if you feel like, okay, I'm not attractive, well, have a friend take your photo in great lighting, show some, you know, positive attitude, right? So if you are, you know, overweight, or if you have an average body and you're short and tiny and you're not confident in your face, let me make that decision, okay? Because frankly, you go out there, you put on your best face, you put on something that shows your physiques or masks it in a way that is very flattering for you, right? Then go ahead and do that. And one thing that I will say on that, guys, is that when I was working at Comic-Con, I was selling corsets for a friend who's actually in this wrestling community. And, you know, the truth is when you're selling corsets, yeah, you can sell to a skinny bimbo and have it look okay on her. But let's face it, you know, you get a Queen Latifah type body and you put that in a corset, that bitch is going to own that, right? So the question is not whether or not you have a good body, but do you know how to own that body, right? So, you know, we've been watching Gotham, and one of the characters in there is Butch. You know, he's a big, stocky guy, and he looks great in a suit. That may not be what you're wrestling in, but, you know, he figured out what's going to make him look absolutely the best. And if you are a big, chubby guy and you don't want to do that, then own it, right? Because the fact of the matter is that it doesn't matter. Somebody is going to love you for who you are and what you look like. And so these things that you might think are negatives about you, somebody's going to love that. So have confidence, put it out there, because that is what they're going to be attracted to, is that confidence. And, you know, you just saying, this is what makes me sexy, right? And when it comes to wrestling, if you have no experience and you want to learn to be a heel, you can go to people who are very experienced and wrestle with them. And one of the things is, and I guess that's a really good segue there, is that in the BDSM community, I started out as a submissive. I was a submissive bottom for a decade at least, right? I came out in 2007, and about 2018 is when that relationship ended. So in that time period, you know, a lot of people, especially in the first half of that time period, a lot of people thought of me as submissive only. And then now everybody thinks I'm a top, and I'm really a switch. And so that's the thing, is that if you want to learn to be a BDSM top, what do? Well, you bottom, right? You learn from people who are topping you, because that's going to give you empathy for that position. You're going to feel, okay, this is what I like about the way that this person's flogging me. This is what I don't like. Okay, this person's too mechanical, or this person's too dynamic. He's not pacing himself well. And when it comes to wrestling, guys, you might think that, you know, you are some tough shit, you know, heel. But if you have absolutely no training under your belt and all you have is muscle, you know, maybe that muscle is going to work for you for somebody that has no experience. But maybe if that's what you want to be, if you want to be a wrestling heel and you want to just put everybody under your thumb, then take classes, take lessons, go do Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, go do Greco-Roman or other collegiate styles of wrestling. Go out and do that and gain that experience so you can be a good heel, right? Learn from people. That's So don't assume and come out with mats. I've had people message me and say that they're going to heal me, and they want me to not hold back, but they want to be that healed, but they don't have the level of training that I do, and so when they come out, they find out that they're not a heal, at least not with me. So learn how to be good. And if you really are trying to message somebody just to learn, then say that. You know, say that, you know, you want to do some tough matches with them, but you want to, you're really there to learn from them. And, you know, some people are going to respond really well to that, some people aren't. And which kind of probably brings me to my last and final point here, which is that, which is lost in my fucking brain. I hate ADHD. So, yeah, I apologize. Yeah, I guess I'm just gonna have to leave it there. Yeah, I guess that's where I'm gonna have to go. So, when you're looking at different profiles that you're into, start by looking at, a lot of times before I read somebody's profile, or even really flip through their pictures, although, you know, I flip through people's pictures just to look at their pictures if they're, you know, if I'm into them, but, you know, if you, the first place that I'm going to look is going to be your reviews, right? If you're on Meat Fighters, I'm going to be looking at those reviews, and especially if I see up there and there's those negative checks, well, what happened there? And some people will, you know, will comment on that in their profiles. I don't know how I feel about that, because the truth of the matter is that, you know, if you're somebody that has 50 reviews on your site or on your page, and one of them is bad, no one's going to notice that bad review. They might scroll down and be like, oh, what happened here? Out of curiosity, but I've never found that to be a determining factor for me not meeting up with somebody. What has been, you know, if you end up with a lot of bad reviews on your profile, it might be worth it to delete your profile, stay off there for a month so everybody forgets it, and then build a new one. But, which I know is probably the most controversial thing I've said on this video, though I'm sure there's been a lot that's been controversial. But, generally speaking, guys, you want to create good experiences, especially because Meat Fighters has those reviews on them. So, you know, show up, have a positive attitude. You know, one person that I didn't give him a bad review, but I'd rolled with him, and I was just completely dominating him the whole time, and he had a really bad attitude about it, and I was really trying to make it fun, trying to keep it playful, and he was just very frustrated, and he was very extroverted about that frustration, even though he didn't turn it on me totally. And I have no intention of wrestling with him again, because I did not have a good experience with him. But that being said, I didn't write a bad review for him. It's not that, you know, he showed up with a bad attitude. It's not that he that he didn't show up at all, or he was late, or he was rude, or anything. He was just, the energy that I was getting off of him was just not the energy that I like. So I didn't give him a bad review for that, and I think that's fair. But if you are, if you know, you don't show up for things, then communicate that. Communicate that as early as you possibly can, because people don't like no-shows. That's going to be the number one bad review that you're going to get, is this person flaked. They didn't show up. Don't do that. If you are going to meet with somebody, if you say you're going to meet with them, say so. If it's one of your first matches and you have a panic attack and you can't meet with them, tell them that. Say that, hey, I'm having a lot of anxiety about meeting up with somebody new, and I don't feel that I'm ready for this. I don't think somebody's going to give you a bad review for that. And a lot of times, if that were me, then probably the way that I would respond to that would be to, you know, say, well, why don't you come anyways? or let's meet at a Starbucks or this such and such bar or a restaurant, and let's just sit down and talk face to face, because a lot of times, especially with meat fighters, I don't tend to do as many face to faces before meeting up as I do on recon, right? Because I know that I'm not going to be helpless in that situation, at least for the most part. And so, if somebody gets cold feet, I will give them the benefit of the doubt. I'll be like, okay, I understand that you're feeling this way. Let me see if I can help mitigate that, if I can help you to feel better about this meetup. And we'll meet face to face, hopefully, if they're willing to do that. And we'll sit down and we'll just talk. And a lot of times when that's happened, and it's only happened to me like, I guess, twice now, but what's happened from that point is that we do end up wrestling after that. We sit down, we meet up, and we talk, and the way that I talk in those meetups is I show my humanity, and I probe them to show their humanity. And if you're trying to build trust with somebody, talk less. Don't talk more. If you want somebody to trust you, listen. Try to ask questions that loosen them up. And if they seem like they are resisting talking about kink, if they're resisting talking about wrestling, then start with something innocuous. Okay? Talk about anything, like, if you're in a coffee shop, talk about, what drink did you have today? What did you do today? Oh, you're visiting from out of the city. Many places that you visited so far. Start with that small talk, and be sure that you're the one asking the most questions, okay? And so, eventually, if you are talking about small talk and stuff and you're showing genuine interest in somebody, you're going to reach a point where they're going to be relaxed with you. And once they're relaxed with you, then you can start bringing up wrestling again, okay? And you might start with, okay, we were supposed to wrestle today, and you messaged me and you got cold feet, which is perfectly fine. But I'm just kind of curious. What do you think triggered that anxiety in you? What made you feel like this might not be a safe endeavor for you? Is there anything that I could have done better to help you feel more comfortable in this? And potentially they might just give you feedback, and that might be the end of it. Or they might say, well, I just kind of wish that we had talked more. Or I'm really concerned about, I'm new to wrestling, I don't want to get injured, and you do a lot of submission wrestling, and you have a reputation for being a really hard match, and I don't feel that I'm ready for this. And, for me, when I say that, well, I'm like, well, everybody starts from somewhere. And, when I am starting up, and when I wrestle with somebody that's brand new to the wrestling community, and I might be their first match, which has happened a lot, I'd be like, well, why don't you set some boundaries for me, okay? What do you want? Do you want, I play with, in BDSM, I play with the safe word. The safe word means trust is broken, and all play must stop right this second. I'm going to untie you, and if you feel up for it, we're going to have a conversation about what went wrong and see if there's anything that we can do to fix that. And so I never liked safe words. I think they're bullshit, but I will respect that if somebody safe words on me, right? And not only that, but when somebody gives me the safe word, or when I give somebody a safe word like that, and I present it in those terms, now they've got this security blanket. They've got this idea that I'm going to respect them, and I'm going to stop, and they will never be in any danger with me. Which, they might not be put at ease by that, but that's one of the first things that I'll do is I'll say, okay, well, this is how you tell me that there's something wrong and that play needs to stop, and this is how I'm going to respond to that. And you might say, well, my safe word is listen, asshole, or lawsuit. Those are two jokes that have been passed around my community quite a bit. But that's great, right? For one, making your safe word "listen, asshole," or something like that. For one, when people first hear that, they laugh a little bit. That's going to help put them at ease too. They're probably not going to forget that safe word. And a lot of times, you know, when I talk about why I don't play with safe words, and I might say this to the person when I give them the safe word, is that my view on safe word is when a safe word is used, all other forms of communication have failed, right? I have failed to recognize this step, and this step. And that's why trust is broken. It's not because I did something that was wrong in the moment. It was because I didn't listen to you. I didn't pay attention to your body language. I didn't pay attention to your attitude, your energies, or what you said to me. And I wasn't respecting that. So that safe word is a last resort. And then I will talk about the fact that what I value above anything else when I'm playing with somebody is communication, right? I want there to be limits on the play that I do. I want to know where those limits are. It's really uncomfortable as a top in BDSM and even a heel in wrestling to find a hard limit after you've already crossed it. That sucks. Okay, if you've never had that happen, it royally sucks. And I've been fortunate enough that the times when I have crossed that line, which is actually, I think it's only really happened once, maybe twice, and part of that came from the inexperience of one person. The other one was actually one of my current partners, and I had been doing a clothespin scene with them, and I just put on way too many clothespins, and I was zippering those fuckers off, and they were the steel ones, the steel wire ones, rather than the wooden ones, and he damn near blacked out from the amount of pain that I caused him. And this had been probably our 20th clothespin scene, and maybe his headspace was wrong, maybe I wasn't reading him as well as I should have, or maybe I really did just push him further than we've ever gone. And that line was crossed, and so we were halfway through taking them off, which is the painful part, when he was very clearly done with the scene, and he did not call safe word, and so I took the rest off as quickly and gently as I possibly could, and I just held him for a while. And so that, you know, it's a horrible feeling for me when I get to that point. And it's important that people understand that you really have no interest in doing them physical harm, right? So we're trying to make people feel safe, and even talking about a bad experience like that, you know, what were the circumstances that led to that bad experience? Well, past experience. That boy loves to play with clothespins. It's one of the quickest ways to get him high. I have pushed him really far and taken him really far with a lot of different things, and he has you know, responded very well to that, and you know, it's not become this really bad thing. So when you're trying to chill somebody out when they're feeling that discomfort, you want to be you know, making sure that they understand that you're going to respect those boundaries. And so that's a good thing that you can get into within this type of meetup, this type of conversation. And, you know, just setting those limits, right? And asking them, okay, what do you want to have happen? What do you not want to have happen? And usually by this time, if you've been talking to somebody and you've been kind of setting them at ease with small talk, and then starting to talk about what their interests are, what they aren't, talking about what safeguards you're going to put in place and ways that you're going to respect their boundaries, by then they probably will be like, you know, I'm just ready to just go and play with you at this point. So so think about that, and think about at all points that we are trying to make the best possible impression so that people look forward to meeting with us. And that's start to finish. Everything that you're doing is towards that end, and don't forget that. All right? So that's what I got for you guys for today. let me know if you have any questions. I'm happy to take private messages. Join the Telegram group. That's where you can talk to the group as a whole and ask them questions about what they've run into. The Facebook group is also there for you. So, all right. Thanks for watching, guys. You have a good afternoon.